Hello, everybody. Peter Greenberg here on this Thursday afternoon, East Coast time, with our global travel update. We're coming to you today from Montreal in Canada. I'm over here for the Virtuoso Symposium, a very important conference, catching up on the craziness in the travel industry with numbers that are astounding. And of course, the real question is, are they sustainable? We'll talk about that a little bit later. Of course, you can always answer your questions. You can roll them in as we go here, and I'll answer every one that I can. A couple of things I want to share with you. You know, this particular week in history is quite a week in history when it comes to aviation. In 1918, this week, it was the first regular airmail route established. And I think one of those letters has still yet to be delivered, but 1918, it happened on May 15th. And then, here's the one that I think is interesting. We all know about Chuck Yeager, right? He broke the sound barrier. How many of you remember Jackie Cochran? Well, on May 18th, 1953, she became the first woman to break the sound barrier. And then, this is the cool one, May 21st, it's coming up, 1927, Lucky Lindy. That's right, Charles Lindbergh crossed the Atlantic, the first nonstop solo flight across the Atlantic Ocean. And he traveled from New York to Paris in the Spirit of St. Louis in 33 and a half hours. About the time it takes right now to fly from LA to New York during a normal airline meltdown. But if you've ever been to the Smithsonian, the National Air and Space Museum, the Spirit of St. Louis is in that building. You got to look at it. Imagine someone sitting in that plane, when you see how small that plane was. All it was a flying fuel tank for 33 and a half hours. But the most amazing thing to me, the plane had no front windshield. He only had side windows. Talk about disorientation. An amazing story. And we all know that Lindbergh did that in 27. Amelia Earhart did the exact same thing 5 years later in 1932. So much for this day in history, or this week in history. We all know about inflation. We all know what's going on with that. Eggs are up about 11%. White bread up about 14%. But anyway, who wants to eat white bread? Flour up 18%. Here it comes, guys. Airfares up between 28 and 45%. Outrageous. Coach airfare between London and New York this week, $2,200. A business class ticket was over $10,000. And the crazy thing is, the planes are full. How long can that go on? That's one of the topics we're talking about here at Virtuoso in Montreal. Is it sustainable? Because at the same time, little known statistic, U.S. banks last month wrote off $3.4 billion in bad consumer loans, people unable to pay their bills. Consumer credit card debt, remember that's all unsecured credit, now nearing, it's just bubbling under $1 trillion. Again, unsecured credit. A little crazy. So sharing that with you as well. And of course, what's going to happen next weekend? Demand is strong as ever. In fact, stronger than ever. We're talking numbers way above 2019. The AAA estimates that 42.3 million Americans will travel more than 50 miles for the Memorial Day weekend. Of course, the unofficial start of summer. 2 million people at airports. Yikes. There you have it. Now, an update. My favorite topic, resort fees, those draconian things. Remember, Marriott got sued by two state attorneys general. They settled, and they said they were now going to display, this is in the settlement, the resort fee in the same font and typeface and position that they were showing their room rates. Well, they didn't get around to doing it. They got fined. Now, as of earlier this week, they are doing it. But something else happened this week. You know, the Attorney General in Washington, D.C. and the Attorney General in Nebraska may not agree with the Attorney General in Texas on a lot of other things, and we're not going to get political. But here's one thing they do agree on. This week, the Texas Attorney General sued Hyatt for resort fees. So the battle is still being waged. We'll let you know what's going on. Now, here's a wild one. You know, when the U.S. Department of Transportation announced this new passenger Bill of Rights, so to speak, the airlines obviously pushing back against it. Ed Bastian was on CBS, he's the chairman of Delta, saying if they put this into effect, it's only going to result in higher airfares. I hope it results in better behavior by the airlines. But we'll get to that later too. But what's interesting is how airlines will always claim that the reason for delays are either air traffic control or weather. Now, most of the time, they have a case. They do. There is weather and there's air traffic control delays. But where is the weather? And what constitutes a situation happening where it's beyond the airline's control? Now, in the European Union, their passenger rights are much stronger than we have in the States, especially for flights that are delayed. And this recent court case at the European Union Court of Justice is an amazing story. There was a flight in which it was delayed because the co-pilot died. And the airline said, we're not giving anybody any money because the co-pilot died, and that was an extraordinary situation. And guess what? The court ruled against the airline, claiming that the co-pilot dying was no different than a flight attendant missing the flight or being sick, and therefore it wasn't extraordinary based on what was going on with the airlines, and they had to pay compensation. Talk about setting precedent. Okay, now, I love the next one. We know all about unruly and disruptive and violent passengers. Well, there was a flight on Frontier Airlines from Trenton, New Jersey to Atlanta, where a very disruptive woman was basically stopping the flight from going. People were very angry, and the police hadn't yet been called. So guess what one of the passengers did? He stood up and took it to a vote. The passengers voted her off the plane. Then the cops came and took her off. I love that story. And the other one from the, Stranger Than Fiction, you can't beat it, but it's true. A passenger, for reasons that are still unclear to me, checked a trash can in as his luggage. And it actually made it all the way to the end of the flight to the baggage claim area. He checked a trash can in, and it arrived. Now, conversely, I've checked in bags that arrived as trash cans. But there you go, it happened. And that is the news update, except for one more thing, which is serious. We've talked about this before. It's the U.S. State Department's travel advisories, right? State Department advisories. Those three words have such a negative connotation that if you hear them, you go, oh, I'm not going. Because it always means something to you like you're going to get your head knocked off. Well, we've had a little problem in this country recently with a rise in the number of mass shootings and gun violence. Well, the tables have now been turned. 7 separate countries, ranging from New Zealand, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, even France, among others, have issued their own government warnings to their own travelers about the United States, about gun violence, right? Saying you might not want to go. You might want to reconsider going because of all the shootings. Wow, tables have been turned. And the one that's the wildest is the advisory from the Australian government to its citizens. And what did they tell them? If they're coming, they might want to take part in active shooter drills. Yikes. All right, so much for State Department advisories. And there you have that. Let's scroll down and say hello to some folks here. Here we go. Mike's saying hi from Oakland. We'll be in Oakland pretty soon, Mike. Another says, saludos from Ecuador. Saludos to you, too. Colleen saying, cheers from France, home of Sebastian Vauban's most enchanting 17th century citadel. Sue saying hi from Bellingham, Washington, where Mount St. Helens erupted today in 1980. Wow, 43 years ago. Okay, Michael's saying hi, Sue's saying hi, but it didn't erupt in Bellingham, she says. John Lample, my good friend, we're in Las Palmas, Gran Canaria this week. All the best. Well, we did the Hidden Canary Islands. You can find it on Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus, one of our hidden series. I hope you enjoy it, John. We loved it there. Matthew saying hi from Syracuse. Julie says, I'm heading to Portugal on Sunday, and there are planned airport strikes Monday morning. Heard stories of chaos when this has happened in the past. Will United cancel or delay flights as a result? Haven't heard anything from them. Not exactly sure what to do. Well, with all due respect to Portugal, which is one of my favorite countries, their immigration and customs border patrol checkpoints, even when there's not a strike, they suck. It's not a surprise that all the flights from the U.S. arrive at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. it's published in the schedules. So you have maybe 26 different inspection stations there, of which 2 are manned. It's not unusual to have a line that's going to cost you 2 hours of your life after the overnight flight just to get to the front of the line. And that's before they have a strike. So right now, I have not heard any operational disruptions from any of the airlines. They're still going to be operating, but you might want to bring a book and a snack or two in case the strike does happen on Monday morning. John's saying hello from Des Plaines, Illinois, home of the original Fred Harvey Oasis, for those people who understand I-90 on the way from Chicago to Madison, Wisconsin. Evelyn saying good afternoon from Denver. Okay, and you want to know if I got your email? I didn't, Evelyn, so please send it again. Gail's saying hello from sunny Pennsylvania. Joyce saying, if you see there are seats available in first class, when should you ask for a free upgrade? When you check in at the airport or when you get to the gate before you board the plane? Well, let's get down to a definition, Joy, of what free upgrade means. You may not qualify for a free upgrade. It's all based on your status with mileage at the airline. Now, if you're a diamond medallion on Delta, or you're a concierge key at American or Global Services at United, you're probably first in line for the upgrade automatically anyway, unless a paid passenger or a paying passenger buys that seat. But I don't see a lot of situations where you're going to get the free upgrade, especially these days, using a certificate or anything else, since the planes are already full. And a good friend of mine was flying from New York to LA today on Delta. He had a first-class upgrade certificate, and when he got to the airport, even though he checked in and told them about the certificate, he was number 19 on the upgrade list. I mean, how pathetic. Obviously, he ended up in the back of the plane. Okay, Gene says, my son's flight from Cancun was delayed all day on Sunday and eventually canceled. They got vouchers for hotel and food, bussed them on Monday from the hotel to the airport, only to be told still no plane available for them. Gave them vouchers again for Monday night. They ended up buying tickets so they could fly out on Tuesday. Gene, can you tell us which airline that was? Would you let me know? All right. All right, John's got this question. I wish I had an answer on this one, John. Any news on when the new museum opens in Egypt? You're talking about the GEM, the Grand Egyptian Museum. I've been saying most of the time these days it's going to be November, but I have no idea what's in their thinking. The museum is functioning now. All the restoration work has been going on with the artists in the workshops. I mean, all the exhibits are up. I've been in that museum over a year and a half ago. I take that back. Over 2 years ago when it was more or less finished, and it's still not opened. So maybe they were waiting for the return of another pharaoh, but I'm guessing November. As soon as I can find out, I'll let you know. Camilla's saying, cheers from New York City. Drove back here in a big, fun Titan V8 to empty our storage unit. Okay, well, and she's back on the road again. Wow. Catherine's saying 7 countries. You bet. That's 7 countries issuing warnings to their own citizens about safety in the U.S. And by the way, that has an economic impact if people don't show up. They're not going to spend money. They're not going to stay at hotels. They're not going to eat at restaurants. They're not going to go to Disney World. At a certain point, the dollars have to start talking in terms of common sense. Catherine's saying, hi from Astoria, Oregon. And Iris is saying, hi from all your Mikado friends. Iris, right back at you. And if you see Dennis or Anna, please give them my best. Lindy says, would you have flown more miles as a pilot or as you have as a professional traveler? Well, when you understand pilot schedules, especially in the senior ranks, they only may be flying 2 legs a week, maybe 3 legs a week, and they may be mostly long haul. I think it's almost about even because I'm flying about 450,000 miles a year, and that works out to about, well, a little bit more than 8,000 a week, right? So, for example, I was in LA, then I went to Vancouver, then I flew here 3 days ago. I'm leaving 2 days from now to go to Belize, and then from Belize to Nairobi, and that doesn't even get us to June. So I guess I may have flown more than the pilots. I don't know. All right, Evelyn wants to know if I can verify my email. I can, peter@petergreenberg.com. And Gene says the airline was United. Wow. And United only gave them vouchers for food in a hotel and nothing more. This kicks into the proposed DOT rules that Secretary Buttigieg and Joe Biden announced about 2 weeks ago. Keep in mind that there's a 60-day period for public comment and then maybe hearings. We may never see those rules until 2024. April says, do you think other airlines will follow suit on devaluing miles and awards? And the answer is they devalue miles and awards every day. What you're referring to, April, is what United did today. What was a 50,000 mile redemption level just turned to a 60,000 mile. Right? They're doing it all the time. They're making it harder to earn and harder to redeem. And even though they will tell you that the airlines carry these miles as a contingent liability on their books, it's a complete false liability because the airlines control the redemption. They never have to redeem those miles. It's like getting a phony tax deduction for a donation you never made. So, look, I am not a fan of re-regulation. A lot of people think it should be happening now. I don't. But I will tell you this. This may not be a U.S. Department of Transportation issue, but when dealing with the frequent flyer programs of the airlines, it is definitely a Federal Trade Commission issue because what started out as one of the most innovative marketing ideas in the 20th century has morphed into a clinical definition that borders on fraud. I'm talking about the frequent flyer miles. How many do you have lying around? And if you were able to redeem them, were you able to redeem them for the offer that you were given to join the program? No. I was on a plane the other day, and anybody who's flying American knows what I'm talking about. The flight attendants are like circus barkers trying to get you to sign up for the Barclay credit card. And what they're saying is, if you sign up for this card, you'll get immediately 2 tickets because they're going to give you 50,000 miles. So that's 2 tickets anywhere we fly. I quoted them saying that. First of all, it's not 2 tickets anywhere they fly, number one. And number two, based on the airlines changing the redemption levels, it may not even be 1 ticket. In fact, it may be no ticket because the airlines change the rules all the time. More on that later. I mean, once I get going, I can't stop about that one. So the answer to your question, April, do I think other airlines will devalue their miles? They're doing it as we speak. Okay. Now, let's go to the question I asked you guys earlier this week, which is, what's your top travel tip for someone who's taking an airplane flight? How appropriate as we're approaching Memorial Day weekend? And here's what we got. Pay extra not to sit in the middle seat. Well, believe it or not, you can on some airlines. Qantas is doing that now. Air New Zealand's doing that now. Air Pacific's doing that now. Sri Lankan Air, even Emirates. Based on the length of the flight and the load factor, you can actually pay between $30 and $165 to have the airline block the seat next to you. Now, that doesn't mean you can lie flat or lay across the seats, but it does mean you will not be rubbing shoulders with a total stranger for 14 hours. Okay, Bob says, have brightly colored travel covers for all tablets and devices. My Dayglow orange iPad never gets left behind. Great idea. M. Flores says, arrive early and have patience. Okay, not the most brilliant piece of advice, but I'll take it. Karen says, be prepared to go with the flow. Absolutely not. I'm a contrarian traveler, Karen. I go against the flow. If you go with the flow, you get flushed down the toilet. Ever think of that? Okay, Brenda says, over-the-ear headphones for music or watch shows. Airplane noise is so loud. I totally agree. That also stops the person next to you who's a chatty Cathy from talking your ear off. Okay, one person said start hydrating at least 2 days before the flight. Wow, how long is your flight? And hydrate as you're getting ready to play a 5-setter. Oh, the same way, I get it. Keep your shoes on. Yeah, I know why. Amir says that, because how many times have you taken your shoes off on a flight, especially a long one, and then tried to get them back on? Whoops. Okay. Okay, Jane has the best advice. Be kind. I agree. All right, another hydration one from my friend Tom, who, by the way, is a pilot for American Airlines. He knows best. All right, Catherine says, check Seat Guru before finalizing seat selection. No, check Seat Guru and then have a conversation with the airline before finalizing seat selection. Remember, what you're seeing on that screen is not what the airline sees on their screen. They hold back. Talk to them. You might be surprised. Okay. Kelly says the experience is relatively unpleasant for most of us, so don't make any worse by being a jerk. Well said. Okay. Mary says, stay calm, check your seat number, obey all rules, including those of common courtesy. Now, this one from Stephen, I didn't set this one up, but I'm going to read it. He says, remain at home, fares are astronomical, enjoy a few episodes of The Travel Detective. Wow! I didn't write that, I'm sorry. And marvel over your ever-growing savings account. And if you die before your next outing, then hopefully you're enjoying the best vacation ever. Okay. But thanks for that note, Stephen. I appreciate that. All right. Catherine has a very interesting idea. Make sure you're hydrated a few days before your flight. Once you're through security, buy a bottle of water, pack an inflatable 12-inch beach ball in your carry-on, blow it up halfway, and use it for a footrest. Wow. Pretty cool. Okay. Now, this is one from Diane, who really had to think about this one. I love this one. Instead of paying for travel-sized toothpaste for trips without checked bags, take a full-size tube that is down to the last 2 ounces, cut off the rest of the tube, leaving enough length to roll it over a couple of times, then staple a couple of times. Wow, you really did think this through, didn't you? Okay. All right, this came from Christina, an old buddy of mine who's a flight attendant for a major airline. I can't tell you the name of the airline, but the initials are AA. Says, be kind to your flight crew and you will be treated very well. Remember, overhead bin space is shared space if you can find enough space. If you bring more than one carry-on, place the smaller bag under your seat. Please don't take up the entire bin. And bring a sweater, hoodie, or jacket because we keep the planes pretty cool. Okay. All right. Easy. Everybody said pack your patience, right? But these days, if you're packing your patience, you'll be charged for overweight. Okay. Do not wait until Tim says, do not wait until the last minute to do anything. What I call airport stress sucks. Do and get everything you need and have it ready. So on the day of your flight, all you have to do is get to the airport early. Okay. Okay, Terry says carry an empty water bottle and container, fill it up after the TSA. I agree. You can always add lemonade powder. Okay. Sue says I take a pair of soft slipper socks with the grid on the bottom and can wash them. Okay, I like these. Judy says take snacks. You never know when you're going to be stranded. Hey, listen. No, I take snacks because I never know when I'm going to be fed by the airline, which is never. Stranded or otherwise. Lorena says, always pack a half roll of toilet paper. Definitely don't want to run out in the middle of the night in a tented camp in the middle of the night with critters outside. Okay. Okay. Okay, lots of ideas here. But you get the drill. All right, let's keep coming down and saying hi to people here. Hold on. Here we go. Hello from Alabama to Katrina. My advice for anyone flying this summer, don't drive instead. Okay. Rula says, any recommendation for a good restaurant in Lisbon? Yeah, I do. It's called Pop Sorda. I have a couple. One is called Quipeche, which is great seafood. One is called Je ne sais quoi. It's on Avenida Libertad. Kind of fancy restaurant, but the food is superb. And one of my favorites, Pop Sorda. I mentioned it earlier. It's in the Time Out building. And great seafood, great everything, but leave room for dessert. And the reason is they have a signature dessert. It's a dessert that when you order it in most every other restaurant around the world, it's served in a little bitty champagne glass with a little bitty spoon, and there's never enough. It's chocolate mousse, but not at Pop Sorda. If you order chocolate mousse at Pop Sorda, while you're waiting for that little champagne glass and a little spoon, you're tapped on the shoulder, you look up, and the waiter is standing in front of you with a giant plate and a huge bowl and a ladle. And you know what happens next. Your entire plate is covered with chocolate mousse. You may need a stretcher to get out of the restaurant, but it's that good. Okay, here we go. I'm looking here. Let me come over here for a second. Okay. Oh, question from Anthony. Do I shop at Home Depot when I travel? No, because I shop at Home Depot before I travel and get all the duct tape I need. I always pack duct tape because it fixes everything. Okay, some from two gals now. Should I bother getting a credit card that gives me airline points or not? Well, you heard what I said about the frequent flyer miles. Right now, you should give strong consideration to a cash back card. That's what you need to do. At least consider it. Because if you can't redeem your miles, if they're consistently or constantly being devalued, cash back, at least you know you're getting 1.5% to 2% on everything you buy. At least it's giving you something tangible. You know, I talked about this, I think, 2 weeks ago, where I was flying from Nashville to Orlando, and I could have flown on American, Delta, or United. Delta through Atlanta, United through Houston, or American through Charlotte, right? The airfare is about $460 in the back of the plane. Well, there was a nonstop from Nashville to Orlando. It's called Spirit. I know there are a lot of people out there who think you should never fly the airline. We tend to be somewhat elitist in our approach to that airline. You know what I did? I did the math. If I flew on Delta, for example, for $460, I would get mileage I can't redeem, and they'd give me a Biscoff cookie. By flying on Spirit, I saved $300 or $400, and maybe $300 if you add the bag charges, but it's still $300 in your pocket, which you can then use to go out and buy 500 cases of Biscoffs. The point is, you got to look for a tangible reward now, not a promised reward that's not delivered. And we've reached a tipping point now where getting a mileage card affiliated with an airline's frequent flyer program may build up your mileage account, which you can then go to an art supply store, hang it on the wall, and frame it, as opposed to having something tangible for your efforts. So I'm not telling you to do it, but I am telling you to consider it, because why not at this point? Do the math. You will see that there's something to be said about that. Got some more questions that you guys sent in, so I'll get to them right now. Okay. Here's one from, I think it's Narty. How do you plan your travels to a new country you haven't visited before? Well, other than the obvious ideas of at least getting one or two guidebooks, to do some research, but guidebooks are not Bibles. Guidebooks are just just guidebooks. But the other thing I always do is, and by the way, it's easy to find online. You can sign up, a lot of it's free, to read the local newspapers in the place you're going to in English. Then you'll find out what's really going on a day-by-day basis before you ever go. And you'll find out what's happening. You know, you go to the arts section to see who's performing. You go to the book section to see what books are there. You go, and obviously everything else. Okay. Nancy says, what is the process to renew global entry? Mine doesn't expire until August 2024. Well, you know what? Wait. There's no point you're not going to renew it now, but sometime around May of next year, you'll probably get a notice from the Global Services guys about renewing, and then you'll go back and do that. And the best thing that happens in sliced bread, right? It works. All right. I talked about this last week, and Guy wrote in. What I talked about was I was on a fully loaded 737 MAX, 180 passengers. By the way, that number of passengers was nothing the Boeing folks ever thought about when they built the original 737. That 180 passengers is actually more than what most 757s now carry, assuming anybody's still flying the 757. And when we got to the gate, this is what Guy is reacting to, I took out my stopwatch to find out, once they opened the front door, how long on average it took passengers to leave the plane. 23 minutes. So how do airlines publish a 30-minute or 33-minute connect time? It's ludicrous. So Guy's question is, I don't understand average time it takes passengers to get off the plane in your context. Median, meaning it took half the passengers less than 23 minutes and half more? You got it. Because if you were in the back of the plane, it would have been 33 minutes or 37 minutes. And the front of the plane, you know, depending if you're sitting in the first 4 rows, you're out with like 7 minutes. So that's your average. All right. Minnie wants to know, why don't they include the time it takes passengers to get off the plane in the on-time and late arrival database? This is one of the all-time scams of scheduling, and I'll explain it. When is a plane considered an on-time departure? When it pushes back from the gate within 15 minutes of scheduled departure time. Now, it can sit out on the runway for 92 hours, but it was as far as the airlines are concerned in terms of record keeping, it was an on-time departure. Every plane that flies today commercially for the major airlines, there's a device in the nose wheel, in the front nose wheel of the plane that the minute it detects the wheel moving in a rear position backwards, it sends a message, sort of like a fax, to operations saying, we left the gate at X. And if it's under 15 minutes, congratulations, it's an on-time departure, even if you arrive 2 weeks later. Ridiculous, right? And the same thing for arrivals. It's block time. So the minute the plane gets to the gate and the engines are shut down, boom, it's arrived. Not when Mrs. Schmidlap gets off the plane, when the plane hits the terminal. I mean, not literally. That was the movie Airplane. All right, Jim says, what's considered a reasonable airfare price from California to New York these days? Well, let's get down to a definition of the word reasonable. I mean, it's getting out of control. But reasonable being relative now, if you can get a round-trip fare for about $380, you're doing great. It may involve a stop as opposed to a nonstop. And Lindsay says, I was looking for recommendations in Rome. Can you help? Yes, I can. I have a favorite restaurant in Rome. Actually, I have two. One, go to the roof or the balcony of the Hostler Hotel right by the Spanish Steps. Go there for breakfast, right? Like 10:30 in the morning. And the other great one is a dinner restaurant. It's somewhat difficult to find, but Uber can help you. A lot of cab drivers don't know it, so you need somebody with good GPS. It's called Il Piperno, Piperno. If you like artichokes, you have now hit the jackpot. This is the most amazing restaurant that specializes in artichokes. It's phenomenal. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit more here, see what we got going. Hold on a second. All right, folks are saying hi from Tanzania. Candy's saying I was just in Montreal. Sorry I missed you. Patrick's saying hi from Tanzania. Do I recommend visiting Syria? Many Westerners are starting to go there. No, I do not recommend going to Syria. You know, I'm a pretty bold traveler. I believe out of the 196 countries in the world, there are only about 6 I wouldn't go to. Syria right now certainly constitutes one of them. Look, if you're going to go anywhere in the world, my metric is I'll go anywhere in the world as long as I know who's in control. And if nobody's in control, I'm not going. So would I go to North Korea? Yeah, I know who's in control, and I've been twice. Would I go to Iran? Yes, I know who's in control. Would I go to parts of Chechnya or Syria or Yemen or Ukraine? No, because I don't know who's in control. That's my metric anyway. I can't say you have to embrace mine, but that's how I make those decisions. All right. Sharon saying hi from Old Lyme. Karen was saying hello from the Turks and Caicos. Did you already make it back already? I just saw you here in Montreal yesterday. What happened? Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to scroll back up here. I bet anyone 25 and younger have never heard of any of them. You may be right. Let me go back to the next comments here. Stay with me. We're scrolling over. Lisa says, I charge everything on my JetBlue card, so collecting points costs me nothing. Well, it only costs you nothing, Lisa, if you pay your credit card bill in full every month. All right? And I'm glad you said that in August you're flying Mint round trip LAX to Boston for free. It wasn't for free. You just got a free ticket, but you spent a lot of money to get that ticket. Remember, credit cards aren't free. Just putting that in perspective for you. Tim says, I'm heading to CEB in December on Delta. When should I look to buying a seat? Well, you didn't tell me when in December. Is it after December 15th? That'll determine my answer. Someone says, glad to know you finally made it to Korea. Well, I went to Korea first in 1978. We're talking about North Korea. And then I went again in the 90s. So I've been twice. Okay. Here we go. Another hello from Tanzania from Papi. Winston says, here's a tip. I always book my travel companion seat across the aisle so that you both have an aisle seat. Yes, but when you lean over to talk to her, you're decapitated by the beverage cart. Ever notice that? All right. Keep going here. I'm still scrolling for people here. The bottom line is this. It's If you've got miles, I mentioned this before, my strong suggestion is redeem them as quickly as you can, simply because the airlines are devaluing them as quickly as they can. For those of you who are regular watchers of our Travel Detective series, the new season is out, and I want to give you a preview of the episode that's airing this week on PBS, Amazon, and Apple TV+.
This week on The Travel Detective, this Mexican state may be best known for its Mayan ruins, but the history and culture here is as strong a force as the gastronomy and the innovation, and they go back generations. My special report from the Yucatan. That's our cover story.
Plus, better safe than sorry. Our correspondent Scott McCartney tells us what to do in the unlikelihood of an airplane evacuation. And then, from the world's oldest restaurant to the fastest service, we've cooked up a list of global eateries that have earned a spot in the record books. I'm Peter Greenberg. All this and more on the next edition of The Travel Detective on PBS. Check your local listing.
I hope you'll catch it. And now it's time for our photo of the week. We never go out without doing that. Let's roll that. Beautiful shot. Do you know where it was taken? First of all, let's congratulate Renu Miles for doing it. And it was taken, guess what? In Hallstatt, Austria. Look at the light. Beautiful. And the view, as he says, is from the salt mines, taken just a couple of weeks ago, May 2nd, 2023. If you've got a photo that you think qualifies as the photo of the week, just send it in to us. And if we like it, it goes right up there along with the Austrian photo you're seeing right now. A couple of other notes. Check your listings for us, because we're traveling a lot in the next couple of weeks. So our global travel update might be on a Thursday, it might be on a Friday, might be at noon Eastern, might be at 6 p.m. Eastern. Just bear with us, but we won't let you down. We'll be back next Thursday or Friday. We'll let you know by Tuesday where we're coming from. We'll also let you know what time to check in, so get your questions ready. Have a great, safe weekend. Get prepared for the craziness next weekend, and it will be crazy. And I'll see you next week.